Everyone's looking for this year's breakout, and today we have a few that might just win you your league. Trevor, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great this morning. Looking forward to going through some of my breakouts for the 2025 season.
Me too, man. We've got breakout picks at every position, some big names, some deep sleepers, and I guess let's start at the quarterback position with your first player who happens to be the biggest name in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and this one maybe feels like cheating a little bit because he is so good and everybody already knows about him. It's not like he's some unknown quantity that's never been the quarterback one before. But I will say he was QB8 2 years ago, QB11 last year. So I do think that there's a little bit of slide in the market going into 2025, especially in Superflex. I think there's a level of safety with him and a level of upside that maybe we aren't even considering because all of his weapons are going to be healthy now. And Worthy going into year two, Rice coming off injury, but he should be ready to go. He didn't actually tear his ACL, so hopefully that means that he's going to be, a little bit further ahead than maybe we've all been expecting. Hollywood Brown back from the shoulder injury, so I think the wide receiver core might be the best that he's had since Tyreek, so 3 or 4 years ago. And so I'm ready to rock and roll with Mahomes. If I have a late first round pick or middle first round pick, even in Superflex leagues, I will definitely start looking to Mahomes in 12-team leagues. And if you can get him in around 2 of your 10-team leagues, I'm all over that.
And you didn't even mention Jalen Royals either, who's a nice addition. Another player, too, in adding Brashard Smith out of the backfield. So, you and I have been really high on Brashard Smith. You just picked him up off waivers after our rookie draft as well. But, he's someone that can get...
Maybe foreshadowing for this video, too.
Yeah, exactly. But he's someone that can definitely get some cheap yardage for Mahomes with his explosive playmaking ability. And I think you touched on it, too, with Mahomes giving you that nice floor. One of the reasons I like him a lot more in Superflex than standard 1QB is you look at last year and he didn't have a game below 14 fantasy points. And when he needs to turn it on, he can. For the fantasy playoffs in week 16 and 17, he had 23 and 26 fantasy points. So I'm definitely buying the dip on him. Next player you've got is JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, and McCarthy, my note was basically, if Darnold can do it, so can McCarthy. So I trust the system. I trust the coach.
Yeah.
I trust the weapons he's going to be working with. It's going to be very difficult for him to fail unless he's hurt. I just think that he's going to be in such a great position that we're going to see him ascend into probably a top 15 quarterback. So again, defining the breakout as somebody that you're either going to have as a surefire starter or somebody that is going to be locked into your roster. And I think McCarthy in Superflex leagues falls into that surefire starter category. We didn't think it was going to be the case with Darnold, but we were making this video last year about Darnold, right? He was going as QB like 28 or whatever, 27. And we were like, look, Darnold is somebody you have to draft just in case. There's a situation where, he can become a starter for you within the first couple of weeks. And that ended up becoming true just because of the system. And, Darnold obviously elevated his game a little bit beyond what we had ever seen. But I think McCarthy is right there in line to be able to do the same thing. I know you and I weren't the highest on him as a prospect coming out, but I don't really know that that's going to matter all that much. We're still an early first round pick, and I still think it's somebody that the coaching staff there believes in and that is going to get every opportunity possible to succeed.
Yeah, I've definitely changed my tune after seeing what Darnold did this last year. And, so far some good vibes. We saw JJ sitting with Jefferson courtside at the T-Wolves game. Love that. We know he played under Harbaugh, obviously a great coach. He won the Natty. But I'm curious, like, with your strategy around him in Superflex, are you trying to get a little bit more stability with a later round quarterback, or kind of talk me through how you view him when you attack him in your drafts?
So in drafts, I don't have any problem waiting and having him as my QB2 target.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about a lot in the third tier or fourth tier, like, the third QB3s, right? That they're kind of broken up by floor and by upside. When you get down into that range, so I wouldn't mind taking McCarthy as my second quarterback. And when you get down into the QB3 range, that's where I'd be maybe looking to add stability to my quarterback room. But in terms of McCarthy, I do think that he needs to be a top 20 quarterback. And that's hard to put, that's hard to get because so many quarterbacks are good going down the ranks here. So I really think that McCarthy's in a position to succeed. It's somebody that if you like him, if you want him, you can kind of build your quarterback 2 strategy around because he's going so much later.
Love it. Moving over to the running back position, first guy up, maybe not a sleeper by any sorts, but Achane.
Yeah, and again, this isn't a sleeper video. This is a breakout video, right? So we're looking for guys that could potentially be league winners at the top end, right? Or guys later that could turn into starters or could turn into good contributors for you over the year. So this one is kind of obvious, right? It's Achane. He's really, really high upside, and he's going inside the top 5-6 running backs. But I feel like there hasn't been a lot of discussion or enough discussion about the fact that he could easily turn out to be the number 1 running back this year. And I feel like every year we don't get a repeat. So it's nice that Saquon's going up there. But, Saquon was going in the running back 5-6 range last year and then just had this huge year with over 2,000 rushing yards. Achane's case is pretty simple. He didn't have as good of efficiency last year. He didn't really have good efficiency last year, and we expected him to be a high efficiency player after having over 7 a carry as a rookie. So if he increases that efficiency on the ground to 5.5 a carry, he got way more volume than I was expecting last year. And then he got a ton of passing game work. And really, he was unusable while Tua was out. Tua missed 6 games last year, and he was horrible during those games, predictably. So the path basically is a rise in efficiency somewhere between his 2 years on the ground and then Tua staying healthy. And if that happens, I could easily see Achane being the number 1 running back in fantasy this season.
And I think, too, with them bringing in Zach Wilson, not that that's necessarily a good thing. At least we've seen with Zach Wilson, like his ability to feed Breece Hall, and we know that Achane can thrive in that sort of role too. So I really like him. Now I was looking at the Fantasy Pros consensus rankings. In standard, he's number 14 in the flex. He's number 26 in super flex. How are you kind of looking to build your team around him in those 2 formats?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get him in the second round, it just feels like a slam dunk, especially if you go wide receiver in the first.
Yeah.
And if you're in the later half of your 10-team leagues, you're going to be able to get them all the way into the second half of the first round, or the second round, I'm sorry. So really be targeting Achane at that point. Now, in Superflex, a little bit more difficult. I feel like running backs do tend to fall, and our strategy is generally to wait until round 5 or round 6. So if he's going to go 26 overall, that might be a little too rich for my blood. I might still be looking receiver in our formats. But overall, I don't hate if he goes there in the 3rd round. I just think strategy-wise, I hesitate to pick running backs that early just because they're so much more vulnerable than wide receivers.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, and so this is the Charger bias in me. It's hard not to be super excited about your first round running back that your new coach goes out and drafts, who's like a ground and style offensive coach. So him and Roman, I think, are going to utilize Hampton to the fullest of his abilities. And in the breakout case here, I think it's going to be a slow burn at the beginning of the year in terms of how productive he's going to be, right? He might look great. He might be getting 12 carries, and you're going to be like chomping at the bit for him to increase his workload. But I think over the second half of the year, that's going to absolutely happen. I have no reservations whatsoever that he can be a top 10 running back over the last half of the year. So when you're going playoff push, you're in the playoffs, I really think that this is somebody that's going to be a locked-in starter for whoever has him.
Yeah, and as a Chargers fan, like, I'm very glad we brought in Najee, but if I was just like a normal fan of Hampton's fantasy, I feel like Najee is going to be a little bit annoying because he doesn't miss games, he doesn't fumble, he gets those 3 to 4 yards. Harbaugh absolutely adores him. He was kind of his recruit that got away. I think there was a story his senior year, he made a last-ditch effort. He showed up at his high school. He announced the homecoming queen at halftime just to get Najee to go over to Michigan. Just a true Harbaugh style. But I think you're right, over the second half, similar to what we saw with Jahmyr Gibbs his rookie year. And I think, obviously, if you draft him, it's going to be at a decent cost and be patient. But, like, better yet, like, please buy low if you can. In our league, I obviously bought Jahmyr Gibbs for dirt cheap his rookie year right before the breakout.
Darren Waller, dude.
That was ridiculous, but that's definitely someone that you'll be seeing on a lot of buy low videos in the first month of the season. Moving on to what I hope I'm allowed to call a deep sleeper is Brashard Smith.
Yeah, so I broke the mold here a little bit on Smith, and maybe we should have saved him for the sleeper video, or maybe we'll reiterate in the sleeper video because he's going 280, I think, on sleeper, and so that's as far down as it gets. If you're just drafting regularly, you're not even going to see his name. So, but I did want to bring him up here because, again, just trying to hammer home the point of defining a breakout as somebody that you're going to keep on your roster or somebody that you could turn into a starter, especially in PPR leagues. If you're listening for that purpose, this This guy is very, very good pass catcher. And I don't know exactly what Kansas City is doing with their backfield. I know people are starting to say, like, oh, Pacheco's becoming a sleeper, but I'm like, I don't know that they're going to give him the ball. It might be Hunt and Smith now, right? If Hunt is going to be on early downs and Smith is going to work in the passing game, Pacheco might split with Hunt or something. I don't know how it's going to play out. And at this point, getting the rookie that can catch passes in this offense is something that I'm extremely interested in. He's a must draft as far as I'm concerned until we get a little bit more clarity that he's not going to play, because you get him for absolutely free. In your best ball leagues, there's no reason to not be taking him. We've seen Jerick McKinnon go on stretches where he's a top 10, top 15 running back for a month at a time. And you don't want to miss on that if you can get it for free. So Brashard Smith is absolutely somebody that I was, I liked him as a prospect too. I was really bummed he didn't go a little bit higher in the draft, but the landing spot I think makes up for it. So I'm all in on Brashard Smith, as you can tell right now, and snuck him into the breakout video just mainly because I wanted to talk about him.
And maybe the fact that Kareem Hunt re-signed shows that they're not 100% certain that Pacheco is going to be fully healthy. Obviously, he came back but wasn't himself. They're not invested in Pacheco long-term. And this is a guy that just has elite traits in terms of pass catching and speed. Moving over to the wide receiver position, we've got one of our favorite players in Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, this is the Brian Thomas Jr. podcast, man. That's exactly why we had to talk about him here. I mean, if we're not going to talk about him again, as a breakout additionally, right? Like last year, we kind of had him more as a sleeper and more as like, make sure you get him. And like, this is ridiculous. He's going at wide receiver 43. There's like no reason for him to be going that late. But now he's a second round pick. And so the reason I want to talk about him as a breakout is similar to Achane, right? These guys are kind of going to go close together, but I do think that this is another player in the second round that is just an absolute must get, like somebody that I really think has wide receiver one upside. And I feel like people are kind of starting to knock him a little bit, including me a little bit, but I wanted to kind of change my mind by mentioning him here. Is he was wide receiver 4 last year, and obviously he scored 10 touchdowns, so that is just naturally going to bake in regression. But I don't think there's enough discussion around the fact that he might increase that this year. He's got Travis Hunter on the other side of him, which is a way better weapon than anything else that he was dealing with. They had like Gabe Davis, or they had Parker Washington out there for a while. Like Evan Engram was kind of like a target getter. All those guys are gone, and Travis Hunter is going to be playing opposite of him. So I do think that the attention is going to be off of him a little bit. And Lawrence was hurt for like 6 games last year.
Yeah.
And so if he was doing it with Mac Jones, like we all kind of thought his production was going to drop off. And then it was like, wait a second, is he going to get better with Mac Jones? And we talk about it all the time with wide receivers that they kind of over the second half of the year of their rookie years, especially after the bye week, they start to break out even more. And he was productive before bye week, different quarterback. And then he was just continuing to go off. I just think that there's an opportunity here for his volume to increase because he did only see like 120 targets. And if the touchdowns don't regress, even if they hold at 10 or if they go up to 12 or something, he's got wide receiver number 1 overall upside. And I don't think that that's being baked in. And we just saw him as a rookie be wide receiver 4, one of the best rookie seasons that we've ever seen. So anyways, I love Brian Thomas Jr. If it's not obvious, I love Brian Thomas Jr. I just picked him in our dynasty startup too. So I'm fired up to have him as well. And I just think, again, he's going in the second round. So it's just like, if you can figure out a way to get him as your second round pick, especially if you draft relatively early and you get like CeeDee Lamb at 4th or 5th overall and you pair that with Brian Thomas Jr., that is just an awesome start as far as I'm concerned.
And I think one thing that I'm most excited about is the addition of Liam Cohen. And we saw it his last season in LSU. Like he still scored 17 touchdowns when Malik Neighbors was drawing a lot of that defensive coverage away, which we would expect Travis Hunter to do as well.
60 catches too.
Yeah, he's just a touchdown machine, and he wasn't really much. He wasn't super relevant his sophomore season, but he caught 31 balls and 5 of them were for touchdowns. So. Just love BTJ. Very excited about him.
Always a touchdown maker. And also on Liam Cohen, I didn't dive deep into that or even mention that foreshadowing for our video at the end of the week. Please tune into that because I spent some time on offensive coordinator changes and coaching changes.
Love it. Next guy up, another player we love as well, Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, another Charger bias here, right? I got to get my Chargers in here
Let's
as
go.
breakouts because I do think that they're going to be much better on offense this year, and I think they have their identity kind of set up in a way that they didn't to start the year last year. So, and Ladd, he obviously started like from week 8 on, he was just unbelievably good, and obviously picking his breakout game is like the arbitrary cutoff for, when you're gonna kind of say he broke out is, wishy-washy back, but he was wide receiver 8 from week 8 on last year, and I don't think there's any reason to think he's going to stop. He was excellent in the playoff game as well. Not that that necessarily matters as much, but I just think that he's going to be the featured player in the offense, featuring Justin Herbert at quarterback. He's got Trey Harris maybe to help him, Mike Williams on the outside to help him open up the field a little bit as well. And I think they're going to hit the ground running this year. I really do. And I think Ladd is uniquely positioned where he's going to go anywhere from wide receiver 13 to 17. And this feels very much to me like Drake London did last year. He was getting pushed up in best ball because that community was like, oh, he could really go off, and he was a second round pick in best ball. But in your home leagues, Drake London was still going wide receiver 13, 15, ends up as wide receiver 5 and a very good value overall on a season long basis as well. So that's very much the feel of Ladd to me right now. And, we pushed him up into tier 2 of our wide receivers when we did that. And I anticipate keeping him up there and trying to sneak him into the back end of the top 10.
9 for 197 and 1 in that playoff game. And, you can tell
including
that was
that 88-yard touchdown or whatever it was. Yeah.
That was beautiful. You can tell that's Herbert's guy. Last guy in the wide receiver position, we've got Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah. And this one is a lot more of like, let's remember who Brandon Aiyuk is before last year. He struggled out of the gate a little bit. He only had 100-yard game in like the first 7 or 8 weeks. I don't think he even scored a touchdown at all either. And it was just like, dude, is Aiyuk ever going to get going here? It was starting to turn up in a lot of buy low videos. And then it was even turning towards like, I don't even know if you should be buying low here. He's not doing anything. This is the Kittle show, and Kittle is going off all year. And then he got hurt. So he didn't even get a chance to turn his season around. And I feel like his ADP has completely plummeted because of that. This is somebody that we were picking in the top 30 picks last year, or 35 picks last year. And now he's going outside of the top 80. I get that he's injured. I get, maybe we need to see some training camp buzz around him and that he's looking healthy and he'll drift back up. But until that happens, again, breakout, somebody that you're going to roster, somebody that you can start. And if Aiyuk is right, he's going to be the number 1 on this offense, and he is going to be a starter for your team. And it's going to be one of these situations where he's going to knock out somebody else that you drafted higher than him to play. And that's usually a pretty good thing, but it's something that if you're going to target Aiyuk, or something when I target Aiyuk, you got to keep in mind that, you have to maybe replace him for the first couple weeks of the season, but then you're going to have a top flight, potentially starter top 20 wide receiver that you can get at 80th overall.
Yeah, plus the ability to put him on your IR spot allows for more flexibility. Last guy on your list at the tight end position, we've got Tyler Warren.
Yeah, and this one is just a changing of the guard for me as a fantasy drafter. I am going to stop making excuses to not draft rookie tight ends. I did it with Bowers last year. I was like, there's no way I'm putting him in my top 10. And it's just like, this position's horrible. Why not? Like, what if, right? Like, and it happened with Laporta and McBride the year before. And so I'm just done denying these guys that are going super high. And I could have put Loveland in here too, but I do think that Warren is in a little bit better position to take over as the number 1 target in the offense. It can make for some easy throws for Richardson closer to the line of scrimmage. Well, I don't know if those are easier for him actually, but it just feels like he might be a little more open, closer to the line of scrimmage, give him a safety blankets, give him an out on a lot of plays. And for me, that's why I'm gravitating towards him, right? It's like Pittman and Downs, and those guys are still good. They're still going to be getting targets, Pierce down the field, AD Mitchell down the field. But overall, I think that Warren can kind of be the feature piece in a way that I don't know that Loveland's going to be this year, just because I do like the 3 wide receivers in Chicago a lot more than anything that the Colts have going on. So Warren, somebody I'm going to be putting in my top 8 tight ends, probably going to push him up to like 5 or 6, depending on where Njoku lands. And obviously we love Harold Fannin Jr. here, but I still think Njoku's in for a good season. Depending on who wins the quarterback job, especially if it's Flacco. And I don't know that Flacco starts all year, but Njoku is probably going to be a top 3 tight end if Flacco wins the job, as long as Flacco's starting, right? So, obviously he turns into more of a pumpkin after that. But, I think Njoku and Warren are probably going to be close in my rankings, and I expect Warren to be going multiple rounds later than Njoku. So, overall, really like they're both rookie tight ends, and I think Warren for this year is my preference between the two.
I saw an interesting tweet from Jacob Gibbs at CBS that Richardson was the worst passer with a clean pocket in short area, 5 to 9 air yards in the NFL. He was 42 out of 42. However, the silver lining is that he was QB6 in terms of targeting his first read in those scenarios. So if Warren is the first read in those scenarios, like, he's going to be getting a lot of targets. And it just cannot be that difficult to figure out how to throw the ball 6 yards from a clean pocket. I can do it. You can do it. Like,
and
Anthony Richardson
he's huge too. It's not like he has to worry about throwing it over linemen or anything. He's huge.
So I'm not trying to pour cold water on it. I'm just saying, like, if you can learn to throw 7 yards on average from a clean pocket to this massive human that is Tyler Warren, and he's going to be your first read, I think there's going to be a lot of value there.
Yeah, and part of the reason too that I just am not as worried about the quarterback is if we were going to be worried about the quarterback and knock Bowers down the board.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who was he, at this point in the offseason, who was even the Raiders starter last year? Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, right? It was just I don't know. I don't know if I want Bowers, a rookie, going into that. I'm not worried about it at tight end. I'm just going to pick the player that I think is really good in Warren. And I think Richardson's going to target him. And I think that there's at least the opportunity that he's just better than the rest of what they've got going on there, especially in that range that you mentioned, and that he gets 20% target share right off the rip from the tight end position, and he's off to the races. I mean, if he's getting a 20% target share, he's going to be a top 5 tight end or top 6 tight end. So that's kind of what I'm going to bank on from the upside. On Sleeper you can get Kelsey in literally the last round, so there's plenty of depth at the position if you miss, and so that's why I'm just going to take the upside case and roll with it.
Love it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is my list of breakouts. We will be doing sleepers, probably more breakouts as we go closer and closer to the season, and we will continue to hammer on some of these guys that we like later in ADP.